Well, hello folks, and welcome to episode 239 of Retropower and Cut. And literally on cue, Gaz has just started the paint booth, so we've got quite a bit of noise in the background. But bear with me, I can bellow with the best of them, so I shall. I've got my Roundstone coffee, and that is getting my brain into some form of operational state, because there's a lot going on, and it's the ram's about run out at the minute. We're going to start with the E-Type, and we have done a few of the little tasks that are needed to progress the dry build in lieu of various larger tasks that are going on at our suppliers, who are perhaps being a little bit slower than we would like to do various things. So, number one task, which Luke is going to explain to you in more detail, and we're going to be a bit backwards because Luke's already recorded his bit earlier today. We're doing this video at about 3:30 in the afternoon, I think, yeah, 20 to 4, and Luke recorded a video this morning going into the detail of his number plate flipper actuating mechanism that operates this, which we've talked about before, that allows the rear view camera to view things and also allows access to a magnetic trickle charge point, and also to an emergency key operated release to get into the boot if you have an electrical failure, because the battery is in the boot and the boot release will be electric. So all of these are very important things. The permanent solution won't be a bolt on a piece of MIG wire. That's currently our boot release, but there will be a remote release cable which tucks into a billet housing behind the number plate there. However, there was a bit of design work which you've seen before gone on. Luke's done a very nice job of that, got it all working. We had a bit of a glitch in that the ability of the actuator to deal with side loading was a little bit less than we anticipated. So Luke's done a quick redesign, which I think he'll mention. That's now in, working, operational. Everything's a little bit just. It just has the right travel, and we need to just alter how the grub screws hold this mechanism to its pivot shaft, because it's not really strong enough. But we're working in a space where we have about 7.5 millimeters to get a shaft, grub screws, grub screw sockets, and the room for the actual screw heads in, all in a very, very tight space. So it is quite tricky, but we've got a little tweak to do to that. But the number plate mechanism is now working. Really good work, top work to Luke. Luke's had a little learning curve in there as well. He's done a little learn, but he's done a very nice job of it. It's all fitted, all working, and we're very, very pleased with that. I'm just going to put that terminal cover back on the battery before I forget. So yeah, that's where we're at on E-Type. I'll let Luke elaborate further on his work on that. In the meantime, we will move swiftly past the Simita, in that we've had the progress this week is entirely mental and paper based, in that we have been working through a solution and a plan to how we're going to structure the body on this car. We had various plans in the background, but we wanted to get that plan sort of crystallized. So Carl and I and George have had a meeting together to work out a plan of how we're going to do things, exactly the structure of the internal parts of the composite body shell, how we're going to attach them to the steel frame, how we're going to get everything in the space that we've got, how we're going to make it strong enough, how we're going to make it safe enough, how we're going to put the seatbelt anchorages in, how we're going to attach the carbon fibre body shell to the chassis, where we're going to attach it, where we're going to attach our steel roll protection, because we're adding some steel roll cage into the carbon body. It will actually become part of the body. We're adding that in. Carbon fibre is very, very strong, very, very stiff, not so good in an impact situation. If this car's involved in an impact, the carbon isn't the safest material to have around you. Following the primary impact, secondary impacts, it's not so great. So we want to put some steel work in there, because that will deflect and help with any secondary impacts. So working out how that's then actually glued in to the body, how we're attaching the door hinges, and various other things, and also beyond that, how we're actually going to, the exact way we're going to do the mold tool, basically. And to that end, we have a meeting next week with Neil, actually, who is the Managing Director of Penta Patterns in Hinckley, who we're now doing a little bit of work with on a couple of things, and he's going to come and have a look at this and give us a bit of guidance and a bit of thoughts on his view on moving forward with the best method for doing the body mould. So that's where we're at on that. There's a few little bridges to cross in terms of mechanical parts, which we'll allude to once I've got the solutions. I'm not going to talk about it until I've got the solutions on those. That's where we're at on Simita. Moving on to the Saab Wasabi. Bobby has finished this area, and he has pretty much, I believe, finished the other side. He's nearly there with the other side as well. As you will now know, having watched this program for a number of weeks, this is not a small piece of fabrication work that Bobby's undertaken here. It's quite a big job, and he has done a spectacularly fine job of it. This video will no doubt be watched by the customer of this car, but I also know that the customer's looking at his private feed via Global Workshop and has commented saying how impressed he is with this work and how impressed he is with Bobby's skills and Bobby's approach, which we all are. And as you can see by the finished product, that is quite a nice piece of work. You'll have seen all that build up, as we have, from the inner structure and the primary parts all the way out to the outer structure. And it's an extremely strong piece of structure now, which is what we want, because we're hanging a lot of carbon fibre over it. We want this primary internal structure to be right for hanging those stiff outer carbon fibre panels onto. So we're getting to the stage now where both of those inner wing structures will be finished, probably by end of play tomorrow. Following that, I'll be moving on to the scuttle. I've said this before, I'm sounding like a cracked record, but scuttle next. Relatively simple compared to the inner wings. Once we've got that done, really the next phase from then is, with a few details around the edges, is going to be getting an accurate scan of this body tub. Removing the quarters, we need to work out where we're doing the joints, remove the quarters, clean up the flanges, and then an accurate scan of it. To that end, we are going to be dealing with solid print. I think I've mentioned this before, but I'm going to mention it again. Solid print in Kenilworth have been very, very, very helpful to us. We had our last scanner from them. We're planning to get our next scanner from them at some point when we can scrabble around behind the sofa and under the cushions and find some money. And to that end, we are going to have that machine, the scanner that we're hopefully thinking about trying to buy, we will be getting on a hire to do a few jobs, this being one of them, and probably some jobs on the Simita being another. And to that end, they've offered some help while we have that device on hire as well. And they have helped us before, and the people they employ are extremely helpful. I'm generalising here, I'm not going to name names, just in case for some reason that they don't want me to, but the guys that have been over to us from Solid Print are extremely smart, extremely switched on, know the job inside out, and absolutely worth their weight in gold. So when we get those guys over and have that scanner hired for a couple of days, I think, we'll be able to get all those mating faces into CAD, hopefully very rapidly. And that's one of the things we want to test, is this, because the primary there are two reasons for changing the scanner. We're very, very happy with our Peel 2, with the Peel 2 CAD software that we use. Very, very good. 4 years ago, pretty much as good as you could get for a structured light scanner. Very, very good bit of kit, very accurate, very slick software, very easy to use, tremendous bit of kit. However, things have moved on. Scanners are now faster, available with their own built-in processor and graphics card, so that you don't need a quite expensive, powerful laptop to be able to run them. And also the software has moved on again. And we want to just analyse, we've had a couple of demos, we've had an online demo and we've had a visit demo, but I just want to see on a real world situation, on a real world, this is what we do, warts and all, how long does it take from turning the scanner on to having the scan finished? And then secondly, how long does it take from having the scan finished to having it as a surface in Fusion 360? Because they're the two bits. If you can shrink that time down, then the machine's worth a lot of money. If it can't shrink that time down, it's not worth much money at all. Really simple. And there are so many scanners on the market. I keep seeing things pop up on Facebook with people waving Kinect-based scanners at things, and really basic scanners that pop up on Facebook where they edit a video to show a bit of scanning and then show a finished model. Don't believe all the hype. Most of those are rubbish. You need a good scanner to start with that's accurate, and then that can work with a minimum of location points, that can read, that can position its data by its surroundings really fast without needing too many data points adding, because that takes time. And then you need some software that can turn that point cloud into a surface. Turning it into a mesh or an STL file, no use at all, because you can't import that into a CAD program and actually use it. Not of a car. You might be able to import that brake disc as a scan, but that doesn't really help as much. When we've got to do all of the apertures on this car, we need a full car scan. You can't import that as an STL file. It's hopelessly large, and the PC won't handle it and the CAD software won't handle it. So it needs to come in as surface, and that's where your software needs to be absolutely on point to get from point cloud to surface really crisply, filling in holes, auto-filling holes, smoothing surfaces automatically, doing all the smart stuff that takes days of manual labour if the software isn't up to scratch to do it. So anyway, bigger side there as usual, but that's the next phase on this. You'll see some exciting footage at some point in coming weeks of that scan work being done and of solid print in the house, doing a little bit of scan work and data acquisition for us. I think that's where I'm going to leave that lot. I'm kind of underselling Bobby's work on this, but I think you've seen it develop so well over the weeks that I probably don't need to say any more about it. So we're going to move on. I'm going to pick this up on my way past, because we're going to move on to the E9. And Stu has been busy on this, and I'm sure there's plenty of footage that Jamie has got in the engine bay of the beautiful job that Stu has done of the new strut tops. Absolutely stunning piece of fabrication work, and the near side is now basically complete. There's some final finish welds to do, but very little. That strut top is now basically complete. After all of the going around the houses, the decision to go E30 was clearly the good one. There's a couple of hitches in the road to that, but in terms of the structure of the car, the E30 parts mate so much more nicely with the structure of the E9 than any of the other options that we were considering. You can see in this area the structure that we're using, and the way that ties into the bulkhead, and the way we basically have this cantilever structure coming off the top of the bulkhead. This is 3mm thick steel. It's a lot stronger than the original E9 structure was. The original E9 inner wings were incredibly flimsy. This is much stronger. I'll put that down for just a sec. You'll see why I've got that in a minute. Yeah, this piece of 3mm steel here, which is folded down this way, that way, that gives us the main strut top. Then there's the inner wing top section, which actually blends which blends in with the original inner wing on the inside. That is the original steel thickness, which is just over 20 gauge. It's probably 19 gauge or thereabouts. It's not quite 1mm, but it's not 0.8 something either. It's about just under 1mm. The steel on the inner wing. That's 3mm, the main strut top tied into that. That goes tied back to the bulkhead, so it triangulates back. And then that's tied into this reinforcer, which is 2mm thick, which comes down the inner wing and will tie onto the box that mounts the end of the cross member. There'll be a box here with the captive nuts in it, and the bosses that the cross member bolts onto, and that will have an extension piece that comes down and ties onto that box. And there'll also be a second reinforcer that comes down at the back and ties into that box. So the whole lot will be fed into the rails, stiffen up enormously that area of the structure. You can see these boxes mentioned in the last week that Stu's built for the lollipop mounts, as they call them in the BMW world, that will go down there. So yeah, absolutely top work, beautiful work by Stu. The inner wings look like they were meant to be like that. And there's only one thing left to do now, really, which is we need to add some Carmen magic to it. So we've got the Carmen salt spray to add in there, you know, just to, because we need to make it rust. We thought we'd better spray some salty water in there and make sure that rust's a treat now. We can't possibly have that being rust protected. So it won't dissolve anywhere near quick enough if we leave any rust protection in there. Moving on from that, I'm going to say it now because I can't face the comments. That's brake cleaner. Moving on from that, yeah, we'll quickly dabble past the Aston here, the body of the Aston. The rest of it's over there. The important bit really is over there. Martin has been a handy man, filling in a little job for us on here, which is that we need to extract the rest of the bulkhead. This nice clean piece here at the top, which is the scuttle panel, which is two pieces, this pressing and then this pressing. We're keeping that bit, but all of that bit from that rusty bit there down is going to be going. And on top of that was this piece, which I mentioned last week, I think, which is the corner of the bonnet shut area. And that piece we still need. So we're keeping that piece, and in order to get that detached from this, that meant drilling a lot of welds out, which left a lot of holes in it. I said to Martin, there's no point faffing about, messing around, we'll just make a new one. So Martin's been a handy man and made a new panel for that. So that's all good. And he's now about to embark on detaching this from this upper section, but also filling in this bodge hole. I think there was a gross wiper motor failure at some point in the history of this car, and somebody's hacked a hole in the scuttle, which is definitely not factory, and that needs repairing. So he's going to remove this section, split this along that front edge, make a new flange for the bottom of that piece, and then make a new piece to repair this that goes under it, get all that welded in and nice and tidy before we start detaching this lot. So that's all complete and original on top of there. Further to that, Cal and I and Luke have been wandering around clutching a Vintage Air Magnum Generation 5 unit, or whatever it is, Generation 4, I can never remember, the new Magnum Vintage Air HVAC unit. Trusty thing, very good device, combines all of the elements you need into a relatively compact space. Turns out not compact enough for an Aston DBS, because while this car is about a light year wide, it's only very thin, it's not very tall, and the space that we have with the structural elements we need to put in gives us a few problems. So we're having to do what I call sort of putting some lines in the sand, and Cal sort of summed it up quite well earlier when we were discussing things. We need to decide where the lines in the sand are, and we're going to just have to put those in, then work around them. And one of those things is that I want to put a goal post frame, if you like, an H frame into the bulkhead, basically the same as what's already in there, but in a very slightly different place. And that's one of my lines in the sand. I need to put that structure in that bulkhead to give the car some structure at height in the bulkhead area, because there's none of this roof structure is worth a jot really. There's not really any strength in any of it, so we need some structure at height into the bulkhead, A, to carry the doors, and B, just to give us a little bit of torsional strength in that area. So that's got to go in, the pedal box has got to go in, the HVAC's got to go in, and it's got to miss the engine. So they're the kind of things that Luke's working around in CAD. Is we've given him the constraints that we've got, and then he's got to work around those. We're still waiting for the engine. We're awaiting that from Phil at Billy's Speed Shop, and we thought that was going to be here by now, but it's not yet. So we're wondering where that is. Come on, Phil, hurry up. We need the engine. Because we are working from a CAD model, which is all well and good, a CAD model of an LT1, which is what's going in it, but I'd kind of like the actual metal in front of us before we commit to the final bits around the bulkhead. I'd rather not commit to it all until we've physically got the thing with us. There's also the question mark with the gearbox of the exact tail angle on the gearbox. And again, we'd kind of like it in the car to make that decision. Another little aside, not a major one, don't panic. How do you think of that for a wiper motor? It's about 25 tons there. I think you could use it for driving the car if the engine failed. That's not going back in. It's ridiculous. Yeah, that's the wiper motor from that. And then we come to the chassis, which Matt has been busy on, and it's looking very good. And I better go and catch that wishbone before that upright falls off. It's hanging by a thread. I'm just going to go and try and catch that before it falls off. So yeah, very, very pleased. Going back to our laser cutting, I mentioned him last week, I'm going to mention him again because they really did, as the Americans would say, knock it out of the park with the laser cutting. Mac Industries and their sister company, Laser Cut Send. If you need any laser cutting doing, Laser Cut Send, have a look online. Part of Mac Industries, really good guys, really good kit now, absolutely top-notch Armada kit, and it's done a lovely job. We have found 0 errors from a cutting point of view, and amazingly, given that there were 107 parts in the pallet that came, not a part missing. Given that quite a lot of them were quite small parts, and there were various thicknesses, that's not bad going in itself, but yeah, not a single part missing so far, and we've used most of them now. So really very impressed. All of the folding has been absolutely on point as well. Yeah, can't absolutely faultless work. So top marks to Mac Industries, Laser Cut Send, really very good. Yeah, Matt's just getting towards putting the last pieces on, which is these rear upper wishbone mounts, which weld on there basically. They carry the rear uppers. They've got to go on there. And then that's pretty much all of the rear major fabrication done. We've got a little bit where we made a little mistake, if I'm honest, and we didn't put a big enough allowance in here for the bush housing for the rear diff mount. Hands up, that's kind of significantly my fault. Partially, I guess it's a combination of mine and George's error. We assumed a size, we didn't have the bush to verify the size. We put it in at an assumed size to go back to it to change it to the right size once we got the bush, and then we both forgot. So it is what it is. We can cut that in situ. We had to cut the box in situ anyway. We're just going to have to pocket out some of the steelwork around it a little bit because the bush is a lot larger than we thought. But anyway, that's a minor consideration, nothing too major to deal with there. Once that's done and these are on, then it's going to be a case of Martin will have done his bits on the front bulkhead of the Aston body, and we can get the Aston body back on top and actually get that mounted so it doesn't need to come off again. And that'll be a pleasing stage to be at then, because we can start all the rear sheet metal. Once that's on, we can put the rear support piece back in that will hold the rear scuttle at the right height and stop the back of the car moving side to side and up and down. And then once that's on, we can cut out all of the inner arch, rear rail, rear sections that we've got to change. And that reminds me, I will be back in touch shortly with ASR again, because they've been superb to deal with. Again, I'm singing the praises of lots of people in this video, but that's because lots of people have been really good. I speak to Sean at ASR in Irchester and in Northampton, who is the man when it comes to Aston Martin, DBS, V8, etc. Aston Martin parts in general. ASR in at Irchester near Wellingborough are the people. We've got every tooling to do everything that you can possibly imagine, and all of the bits they've supplied are absolutely superb. And I think I'm just going to get a new rear panel from them, because whilst it's a very, very simple panel to make, and we could just make it, the tricky thing is I don't actually know the dimensions, and somebody's cut through both sides of that one and then welded it back together. So I have no idea what width it should be. And it would be much easier to just, given that I've got to repair it anyway, I should just get a new one from ASR, and then we know it's the right width, which would be useful, because at the moment we just don't know what size it should be. And that car's certainly led a life in the past, so we're getting things. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're at with the Aston DBS. Progress is good. Bobby's hammering stuff. Saab's progressing well. Everything's coming on nicely. Over to body shop. Now, I'm trying to get Gaz in front of the camera. However, now's not a good moment because he's actually in the booth painting. And that's a pretty current thing. You can actually see him through the window there. I'm not going to distract him. That wouldn't be very good. But yes, Gaz is painting the XJC. So you should be able to see the final results of his endeavours on this video, hopefully, fingers crossed, all being well, as long as it doesn't all fall on the floor. We mentioned the spray gun, the new starter gun. I am going to not be able to tell you exactly what it is now. What we will do is I'll get Jamie to put a bit of B-roll in of what the actual gun is that Starter were demoing. But they've been over The starter rep was in again today, actually, checking how things were going. And they've actually given us a pair of demo guns, a water-based base coat gun and a clear coat gun on demo to try. Needless to say, they're not particularly cheap, as they wouldn't be, but the results are very, very good. The base coat gun is very impressive. It's a big step up from where we were. It does a lovely job. We're very, very happy with that. Gaz is happy with it. The finish is good. It's quick to use. It puts material on fast but controllably. Using a fluid tip no bigger than our old gun, it seems to put a lot more material on much quicker, despite using the same size fluid tip. And it has useful features like a digital pressure gauge that clicks onto the gun, and the pressure is actually monitored on the gun. So you're not monitoring via any length of pressure drop, you're actually monitoring the pressure on the gun. Very, very, very handy point. And yeah, the setup's been bang on, can't fault that, everything's gone very well. Panel wise, he's probably 2/3 of the way through the panels, I would say, looking at what's around there. He's had to do the bonnet and boot in 2 passes, do an underside and then a top side, just because you can't really get them secure enough on panel stands to do both sides and not have obstruction from the panel stand. So he's done those as laid flat, doing one side then the other. So there's those to do, various other little bits to do, and obviously the body shell is part way through doing right now. So yeah, all good. It's looking absolutely beautiful. The colour suits the car perfectly. It's a very, very, very nice choice of colour. I was unaware, I knew it was a blue, but I was totally unaware of what sort of blue until I saw the first panels done. And yeah, it's absolutely perfect. Beautiful colour. So I think on that note, at that point, I'm going to hand over to Cal and let him take you through the assembly shop. I'm going to shut up, stop waffling on. Oh, sorry, one other thing, last aside. I cannot believe the amount of response Trusty Hulterfor's feeling in my pocket. The number of people must have gone out and bought these, the amount of messages I've had. I'm trusting that everybody that has is glad they did. I imagine they are. It's not hard to sell these things, and I'm not even selling them because I've heard nothing from Hulterfor's about it. Strangely enough, they haven't even shared it on their own Instagram page, so who knows. But anyway, as long as people are out there getting tools that are really good, I don't really care. So on that note, over to Cal in the assembly shop.
Thank you very much, Nat. And a few of you might have been wondering where the devil Mark's been recently. And I'm hoping he's alive still, but I believe he's up here. So let's go and see what he's up to. Yep, I think he's alive. Yeah. So Mark's been beavering away very hard in the parts den. Now this is a part that part of the workshop that we don't often show very much. But it's a very important part of the workshop because it's where all the components of every car are stored. And this was an area, I mean, I mentioned in a previous episode, we were trying to improve our parts management because over the years, as our business has grown and the number of projects we're working on has grown and the complexity of those projects has grown, staying on top of the management of those parts has become quite tricky. If you follow me around, we'll see what Mark's been up to. So all of these shelves that now have the uniform black baskets on them are shelves that he has gone through and organised, and we are using functionality of Global Workshop, which we've talked about quite a lot before. So Global Workshop is what we use for our time tracking, so all the guys record their hours on there. It's what we use for our customer updates, so all of the media update stream that a customer gets is on an app and on a desktop, so they can follow along with the build basically, because our guys are uploading photos and videos as they do the work. It's how we do our inventory management, so all of our stocked parts, things like nuts, bolts, even abrasives, and essentially anything that we keep in stock that is used in the course of building a car is managed on Global Workshop. There are QR coded labels on all of those containers for those parts, and the guys just scan them out when they use them and they get assigned to that project, so it's billed to the customer, and it also knocks it off of our inventory record, so when the items are running low, Kelly in the office orders more and we never run out of anything. So what we've moved on to now is using Global Workshop to manage our one-off parts, or not stocked parts as the terminology would be in Global Workshop. And that is anything that belongs to that car, whether it be part of the car when it's stripped down, or whether it be something we've bought during the course of the dry build, or whether it's something we've made. All of those parts now get recorded on the system at various points. If it's bought, it's literally when it arrives here. If it's something we've made, it'll get recorded at the point we strip down the car after dry build. And then those parts are QR coded, and then at that point we can log their locations in the workshop. So if I can just give an example, I've actually got my phone on me somewhere here. If I go into Global Workshop, I've got all the projects here, hit the smart code button and scan a randomly selected part, it will take me to that part, and you can see here there are photographs of the part. There's a part history at the bottom, and in this case, actually quite conveniently, there are some processes added, and that's an important bit. So we can add processes such as surface finishing processes. So in this case, this part, it says it needs bead blasting and it needs zinc nickel plating. And we can look across the whole system at every component across all projects that need any one of those processes doing. We can then mark them as done. We can also mark the parts as being out at a supplier. So for instance, when we send out a batch of, let's say, parts for zinc nickel plating, we will mark them as being out at the company that does that for us, so we can see where it is, and then when they come back in, they'll get scanned either into goods in in reception, so we know they're in reception. Whoever takes it out of goods in will scan it out of there, so we can see they were the last person to have that part, and that'll be in the part tracking history. And then when it's scanned into a bin here, these QR codes on the bins will be scanned. You put the part in the bin, scan the label, and then on the part history that will show that that part is in that bin. So essentially we can see and manage all of the processes on the parts, where they are, when they're out at suppliers, and also see a tracking history such that if somebody comes up here to grab a part to use during dry build, we can see who last had that part. Now they may hold their hands up and go, oh no, I never had it, but at least we're 90% through the information we need to just make the management of the parts better and make sure that when we're doing the final build of the car, things are there ready to go. We're not wasting time looking for parts, we're not wasting time finding that the surface finishing process hasn't been done and it's not ready to go on the car. So yeah, it's just an organisational step that has been, I'd say, long overdue really. Right, anyway, that's what Mark's up to. So Mark's basically our parts manager now, so he's in charge of everything that's coming and going up here, all the processes. He'll carry out a lot of those processes, which he has always done, things like bead blasting. If parts need Cerakoting or painting, he can still do those processes himself. So that is a little insight into what he's been up to. In terms of the projects, Churchill, Luke has now done the 3D printed sections that run, or the prototype parts that run over the top of the door and window frame, basically the roof kind of rail, or cant rail I think they'd often be called. We talked about the fact we were extending those up to make a nice job of the quilted leather headlining that we're going to do in that car. I think there was a couple of comments about, really, are we doing a quilted leather headlining, sort of questioning the taste there, and I think it's important that you understand the overall vision for the interior on that car, because it absolutely is in keeping with the overall vision, and it's going to look stunning. So reserve judgment until you see that one finished. But yes, he's prototyping those parts, pretty happy with that. We're going to prototype some additional sections to go over the windscreen and around the rear window. As soon as we're happy with all of those, we can print the final parts, and then we can start cracking on with that headlining. So yeah, it's really just gearing up for interior on that. In the meantime, there are bits being machined right now. I had some sneaky pictures through from Andy of the air intake bezels on the front, which are being machined in brass. Then I think after that he's doing the rear lamp bezels. Yeah, so we've got a few machine bits in progress at the moment on that. Project Kuma, we talked about the alternator. We wanted to spin that faster to get more charge at idle. Andy turned around the alternator pulley for that ridiculously fast, or the new crank pulley to drive the alternator. So thank you, Andy Concept 303. Downside is the belt supplier has not been quite so impressive, and we're actually still waiting for the belt, which I'm hoping is going to arrive any minute now, and maybe allow us to get out in that this afternoon to test the differences and get some Motec data logging on there to see how the voltages behave compared to how they were. Other thing on that, last little detail, fitting the front bumpers, which are now done, and then that is going to be going for detailing ahead of final handover very, very soon. So we'll hopefully get some shiny pictures of that next week. The Allegro, George is just finishing off the fuel filler neck with a view to being able to get fuel in it pretty soon, because Alex is just finishing off the wiring harness for the engine. We've gone through some initial electrical fire-up work on it, testing the actual chassis part of the wiring harness, making sure everything's working as it should. And I would say the engine harness is going to be there or thereabouts done today, tomorrow, certainly early next week. And then James has been patterning and cutting all the carpets for that, which I think he showed you that he was on with last week. They should be being edged today and tomorrow. I think Ellie will be busy doing that. And actually, that probably gives me a convenient handover point to go and see what is going on in the den, because there's quite a lot going on in the den. Welcome back to the den, and Nick is on holiday this week, so it's down to me to see what's going on down here. And I'm going to pause briefly on this centre console. So actually, if you rewind a few months, you'll remember Richard was working on the interior for a console Capri, and this is actually an interior for a car that we're not doing the build on at Retropower, although it is a customer that we've built a car for previously. The body shell is being done in metalwork wise somewhere else. I think we'll be painting it, so watch this space on that. But he definitely wanted us to do the interior on it, which Richard's bit was looking absolutely amazing. He kind of remodeled the seats to make them more supportive, give them a bit of a slightly fresher design. And one of the other things which Luke had worked on also over the past months was this centre console, which we finally received the billet parts for. I say finally, that makes it sound like the machinist was slow. He was incredibly fast. We just didn't get around to sending the models for quite a while. So it's the culmination of various things you've seen before. So the leather top piece that Richard upholstered, which is a 3D printed part that we designed. The original lower part, which Richard leathered. The armrest is a 3D print. There is a steel panel going in here, which we're just doing the paint work on. And then these machine parts. So there's a billet bezel around this cubby hole here. There'll be two little magnets at the front, which will stick to the mild steel trim panel that's going in here, that's going to be painted. So that will snap shut with a magnet. And then in here, we'll go a little cordless phone charger. The two billet bits will be anodized. And this is the pineapple holder, it seems. Or occasionally, if you're so inclined, you could put your gear stick through there. And then at the front is tacho, and then a couple of switches, I think heated screen and something else. Two things they didn't originally have on a console Capri. So actually really excited that if we're doing the paint on that car, then we will probably be able to do the trial fit of the interior immediately following that. So although it isn't a full Retropower build, it's going to be quite exciting to show you that. So that's that. In the detailing booth is my E30. Now it seems slightly counterintuitive for it to be in the detailing booth because there's all sorts of mechanical work I need to do on it. However, this links in with me talking about the alternator belt on Project Kuma and the fact that we had a delay in getting that through. And that car was actually supposed to be being detailed today, and mine was booked in a couple of weeks from now. However, seeing as there was a gap in the schedule, I thought, well, we might as well just get this in now then. At least gives Chris something to do, and it is looking pretty spectacular. So we put this through the body shop at Retropower just as a quick filler job because there was a space in the schedule. So it was a rough and ready paint job. So a bit of wet sanding on the roof, but basically just nibbing out a few bits of dirt, knocking back some of the orange peel on it, and then making it look half respectable. For me to then not be able to have the time to work on it to get it mechanically ready, so it'll probably just then be parked back over there again for ages. But hopefully not. I have got the bit between my teeth. I did actually have a look at it on Saturday, and I identified some of the stuff I need to do. Slightly disappointingly, replacing the fuel tank is now one of those things, which I wasn't expecting. I did think the fuel was probably going to be really nasty in it. Pulled the pump out, fully expecting to change the fuel pump. What I didn't expect was for everything above the petrol line in the fuel tank to be completely caked in heavy corrosion. So need to do that, and then very excitingly on the ramp here you will see the project known as Minor Threat, which is a Retropower project. Obviously, for those who have followed us for quite a while, you will be very familiar with this car. We followed the entire build of this on the Uncut series right through. I think we did actually do another little series where we cut out the segments that related to that car specifically and put them together as a separate little series. So if you look at our playlist, you'll be able to see that one. This has now done some shakedown mileage with the owner. By his own admission, he didn't get to drive it as much as he'd hoped, just because there's a lot been going on in his life. But basically, he's done his sort of snagging list on it. He's come back to go through that. It's all relatively minor stuff in all. No pun intended, relatively minor stuff. But it is essentially. So I'm trying to think of some of the bits we're doing on it. The door seal had got a little frayed bit on it. I honestly think it might even have been there since we handed it over and not noticed, because I think it's where you get in the car and you rub against it as you get in and out. So we're going to swap that out. The instrument, it's like a multi-function speedo, tacho, oil pressure, water temperature, fuel level, volts from Classic Instruments, and for some reason it occasionally kind of mists up inside, so I'm going to have to try and look at why that is. Only does it every now and then, presumably something to do with differential temperatures. So I'll have a look at why that's happening. Wanted to soften the suspension, actually. That was one of the major things. It's a little bit stiff. Now for me, I kind of thought it was just about at the right level, but he reckons it's a little bit too stiff. So nice and easy though. It's on nitron coilovers with 60mm standard springs on it, so it's just a case of getting a slightly softer set of springs, putting those on, readjusting the ride height. We should be able to do that nice and easily. That's the beauty of running those sorts of springs. And then a couple of little upgrades. So one, we've got you tend to find some of the road dirt is being kicked up at the rear arches, and although they've got a sprayable PPF on them, they are getting tiny little chips here and there. So we're going to do some really funky little 3D printed deflectors, which I think Luke may have talked about. So we can basically kind of like a mud flap, but cooler than a mud flap, that sits behind the front wheel to deflect some of that spray and any dirt off the road and minimise the amount that hits the rear wing. And a couple of other little minor upgrades. So the rear lights, we're going to make some little shields. Originally they just sit on the inside of the rear wing, and they are susceptible to all the road spray, and they have waterproof connectors on them. One of the things the guy said was it would be nice to have a little shield around that so it's not directly getting the road spray. So we're going to make some really cool little 3D printed covers for those. I forget, there were a few other things as well, and they're not springing to mind, but basically it was a really minor snagging list, exactly the sort of thing you expect to see in that early sort of mileage. You tend to find, I think I've mentioned this before, the bathtub curve. So you tend to find a lot of things go wrong. If you imagine time is the lower axis of the graph and things going wrong is the vertical axis, you get a lot to start with and then it settles down, and then after a lot of miles it starts to go up again. But I tend to find like 90% is tackled in the first 100 miles. Then you get a smattering going through the sort of remaining up to about 500, maybe a little bit more, and then you find very little after that until it's a high mileage car, and then stuff starts going wrong again. So it's just going through what you expect to happen during those first few 100 miles of use. So that's that. And what I'm going to do now, because Nick is not here, and I know Luke over there has been gagging to get behind the camera, he's been polishing his head up specially for it. His makeup's all in place. He's looking absolutely pristine. So I'm going to hand over to Luke to do a little piece. Let's see how he gets on.
Cheers, Cal. I'm Luke. He says that Nick's on holiday. I don't believe him. I think he's had him killed because he took the piss out of his BMW. Anyway, the Barchetta's back. The customer wants the storage for the roof re-trimming because it's a flexible plastic boot liner that was in there before, and it's all cracked and it's misshaped. So James is having a look at that one, so that's why this one's back, which hopefully will look cool when it's done. I'll take you inside and show you what we've been up to. So, had a fair bit of work done on the Lupo this week. We've got the braided brake lines in now, nicely routed, tucked away and protected in a fireproof sleeving because of the turbo sat at the back. So it's all piped up on the ABS pump, all piped up underneath. So brake fluid wise, we're nearly ready to start putting some fluid in this, and then once the fluid's in, I can look at getting the engine back in, which will be great stuff because it's been like this for a while and I'd like to see it back in. So that's another great step forwards with this vehicle. This week we've also had the roof lining replaced on this VR6. This has been an absolute love affair of mine from start to finish, that it has. Always wanted one when I was younger. That VR6 is just something, don't know whether I'm a Star Wars fan, but that Wookiee sound is just insane. So I'll open the door so Jay can get some photos and videos of the roof lining. Yeah, it's going to be a sad day to see this go tomorrow. So that's where we are with this one. New addition to the workshop is this stunning Mini. The gentleman who owns it bought it with his dad many moons ago to restore it with his dad, have some memories, and he's kept it ever since. Had a light restoration when he was younger with his dad. He obviously used it. Then he went to the extent of doing a full-blown restoration. There's a lot of pressure on us with this one because the gentleman told us that he doesn't trust anybody with his cars. He likes to do everything himself. So to be told that and then also being trusted to do it, it's a big buzz, but also quite a lot of pressure. It is absolutely stunning, even to the point of the engine. You could eat your dinner off it. I'm going to make myself look a twat so I can't open it.
5 minutes later.
That is absolutely amazing. For a car to come in here that's been restored in his garage, the attention to detail it's fantastic. So I know Nick's going to look forward to doing this one, but that's if he ever comes back. It depends how good of a job Cal did. So yes, that's a nice job that we're looking forward to doing. And unfortunately, that's pretty much it in the den this week. We've got some nice parts turning up for this, some nice AP brakes, some routine maintenance stuff to be done on it as well in the next couple of weeks. So that's going to have some work done. And yeah, I think that's about it for me. Because Cal's a bit of an idiot, he didn't hand over correctly and he didn't hand over to the CAD guys. So I'm going to hand you over to the CAD guys. Thanks very much.
Hi guys, and welcome back to the CAD Chateau. This week, I'm going to touch on the den first for once, because I was down there twice this week. One was to do with some intakes on the... That was it. It was in one of my favourite cars down at the minute, the 500 SEC. Just a great looking car. I absolutely love them. So we are having a look at the intakes of that, hoping to get it to breathe a little bit better, because the original setup is a bit and then I went down there yesterday as well and literally scanned about 5 different cars. Got about 20 different jobs to do. That's a bit of an exaggeration, it's not 20, but I got a lot of jobs to do down at the den, which are really exciting ones. We have had the Morris Minor back as well, and there's a few little tweaky cover-up bits, and not cover-up, but like a few little bits to do on that after a year and a bit of ownership. And then there's a little bit to do on the Quattro in terms of the transmission tunnel with the new gear selector and everything, and then a few bits on the Lupo as well. So stay tuned for that. I'll have a bit more information of that when I actually get into it, but all the scans need cleaning for that still. So I'm going to move on to, there is a few things which I can't talk about, but I'm going to move on to the E-Type and the number plate flip mechanism. So this is it in my hand here. I think you will also have some footage of this prototype on the car. This is the first working prototype of that system, and we are close, to be honest. There were a few like moments when we first put it on, but we've got around that, and we are now really close. All I need to do, or all I'm hoping I need to do now, is do a revised crank design, which is on the printer now, which has slightly less side loading forces on the actuator itself, and brings it. I put a bit of leeway distance between the actuator and the crank itself at first, so it wasn't touching it to begin with, but we're just not getting the full 90 degrees that I got in CAD on the actual car. So now what I've done is I've changed the crank design, so there's a lot less side loading on the actuator itself. It stays about 90 to the actuator the entire way around, and also brings the crank a bit closer to the start position of the actuator as well, because that will hopefully give us our 90 degrees all the way around. So that will literally be hopefully on the car by the end of today, and maybe you guys might be able to see that as well, which would be awesome. And then it's been a short week this week because we obviously have bank holiday Monday, but that's what else I've done. Downstairs is the Capri center console. So a while ago I did all the design work for that. That was sent off for machining recently, and now yesterday I did the final bits of fettling on the metalwork itself on the center console. Got all the billet bits in, they look great. I'm honestly chuffed with how that's turned out. So now that can go over to the den for all the final fit and finish. The parts need to get anodized obviously, and then that can be handed back to the customer. I hope he loves it. I think it turned out really cool. And yeah, I think that's where I'm going to leave it for this week. There's not a lot to talk about because, as I said, it's been a short week and I've been involved. Oh wait, nearly forgot the most important thing that I've been doing. Aston Martin bulkhead. Oh my god. So Matt, I said last week, was on with the chassis and has done a fantastic job. That's come along tenfold now and is honestly nearly ready for the body to be put back onto it. What is preventing that from happening is the bulkhead design, or some of the bulkhead design, specifically the H-post, which is quite a structural part of the car. So I've been doing some work over the last few days and at the end of last week to kind of come up with the best solution for the positioning of that relative to where it was originally in the car, and then working around other constraints that we have with all the changes that we've made, such as AC, the new engine and gearbox, the pedal positions. All of those different things have quite an important factor in deciding where these structural bits go. So we've been playing around, as per most things and most cars we do. There's not a lot of room, but there's nothing that we can't work around, we can't fix, and honestly I think we found a pretty good solution to that already. So stay tuned for updates on that as well. And then I'm going to move on to George. George has been on with finalising, hopefully, the AC stuff. So I think we're on final prototypes now for that, which is...
I'll do some test fitting later, or tomorrow for Jamie.
Here's one we made earlier. So it's a load of 3D prints which kind of make up the whole system itself. We are so close, and George is going to do a little bit of render work for Jamie to put in the video. But that is honestly pretty much ready to go now. And then he's also been doing some really exciting Simita meetings as well, because obviously that is quite an involved project which is going to take a bit of forethought before we just start chopping and making. So him, Nat and Cal have been downstairs a lot over this week, kind of talking about the next steps on that. And yes, I know I said stay tuned a lot in this part already, but stay tuned for that, because that is genuinely super exciting, and that's going to be a mega car when that stuff comes together. Thanks guys, I'm going to hand back to downstairs.
Thank you very much, CAD Den. And that's it from us for now. Please do like and subscribe. It means a lot to us to see the subscriber numbers going up, so please go ahead and do that. And yeah, we'll see you again next week.